Welcome to Well-Rounded. I'm your host, Tiffany Parker. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Well-Rounded Wednesday. As you can see, we have a guest, and it is remote because she lives in South Carolina, right?
Yep.
Okay, so
Yes, South Carolina.
this is Cherie, and she is a friend of mine. It's funny, we went to BYU together, and we had like a dance class together. Like kind of like we didn't like interact a ton, but yeah, it was a ton of fun.
What class? Do you even remember?
It was ballet is the one I remember.
It was ballet.
You, me, and Scott and Devin were all in that one.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And I was terrible and you guys were great. So we're
like the boys were great and
well, that's true.
Chugging. Yeah, they're the dancers.
Yeah. All right. So Cherie, just go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us kind of what you do for a living. You have your hands in a lot of things. Cherie's very well-rounded. So yeah, give us kind of some background into you.
Oh my gosh. Well, thank you, Tiffany. I am so excited. So man, where to start? Whew. I think I will start with, I am the owner of Cherie Kaufman Coaching. I am a mindset coach, originally an actor. Man, I do so many things, but starting from basically the beginning, my whole focus was acting and performing. Like you mentioned, we were at BYU. I was musical theater. I went on to go to New York. And like, we can get into more of these details in a bit if you want, but yeah. What kind of led me into mindset coaching. But yeah, I'm a mindset coach. My niche has kind of shifted a little bit. I just call myself a general mindset coach now. I've worked with all sorts of different people with different goals. But I'm also a fitness instructor, yoga teacher, and I still perform. So I am truly, I mean, this is probably perfect for your podcast. Well-rounded, yeah. Definitely. But I would say being a mindset coach and my mindset work has really shaped me to be like who I am today, and has like changed my life for the better among all the things that I do. Like, that is the core foundation of creating my happy, well-rounded life. So that's a quick little intro.
That's awesome. Yeah, we'll probably kind of like touch on some of those things anyways. Okay, so what got you into acting, and then what eventually led to the transition to like mindset coaching? Can you kind of walk us through that journey a little bit?
Oh my gosh, yes. So acting, I've always been like a performer, an artist. Started off just singing as a kid, and I feel like for a kid who likes to sing, like theater is like the first stop. It's like, oh, you can sing on stage, and then you get into dancing and acting and all that stuff. So I was just your typical theater kid. But I decided I really wanted to do it forever. I wanted to do it professionally. So went to school. Yeah, I'm trying to edit myself so we're not here all day.
You're
but
good.
Yeah, I knew that's what I know. I was like, wait, we can go off in this direction. No, but that's always been like one of my that's always been a bit of who I am, as I know is similar for you, an artist. And so yeah, so after BYU, graduated in musical theater, went to New York, and this is where my mindset journey kind of began, but I didn't realize it. It was probably like the downfall of my mindset, but I didn't understand mindset at the time, so I didn't realize how powerful it could be. I didn't have any mindset tools. Anyway, so we decided to move away from New York, my husband and I. I was just a bit burned out, and then moved to Charleston, South Carolina. Beautiful, sunny Charleston. Wanted to try the sunshine, something completely different than New York City. Was still really pursuing performing, just like a different way. I was doing local calls and traveling to auditions, traveling directly to theaters instead of the big cattle calls in New York. I was actually having way more success, kind of doing it this different back way. But then COVID happened, and it was just a whole different journey. So we were actually getting ready to move back to New York. I felt like I had that pause and that reset, and I was kind of less burned out, and I'm just finding new ways to do it. But then COVID happened, and so I'm like, well, what now? Along the way of being an actor, I think we're always looking for that like side job that we can also be very passionate about. So I spent a lot of time, basically all my 20s, being like, okay, well, what else can I do to make money on the side that's flexible, so I can take a job, so I can take a contract here but still be remote. I mean, it's like, we're looking for that perfect thing, but also be passionate about, because anyone who knows me knows I've done a million different little side jobs. I've done literally everything. But if I'm not super passionate about it, it doesn't stick. I'm just that artist, that creative soul. I need to be interested and passionate the whole time. And so I did actually, I got a little closer and closer while doing the acting thing, looking for side things. And as I'm looking, I'm like, okay, this coaching sounds interesting. So I kind of have it in my mind that I want to do something with like in that world, but I didn't know what. So I got my personal training certification. I was getting into fitness since I had a lot of time during COVID, things like that. And so I'd heard of coaching things, but I really didn't know what the coaching world was about. But I had a good friend from BYU who had become a life coach, and her name's Whitney Yulin. Shout out to Whitney for changing my life, and so many. She is popping off, so incredible. She's like a celebrity life coach now. She's incredible. So, but I called her up and said, hey, I'm like really struggling with these self-tapes. Even though I love performing, the COVID world was all about self-tapes, and I just was like, oh, I can't do it anymore. I just don't have the motivation to audition, and as an actor, that's like your whole job. So for me, this was the intro to it, was me hiring Whitney to help me with motivation to do self-tapes. I didn't really know. It was like I had this yearning to be a part of the business still, but it was just such like a up and down roller coaster of like, you get that passion and excitement to audition, and then you get rejected and you kind of fall back down. Or, also the issue that we were falling into with COVID was so many self-tapes, and it just felt very much like, what's the point? Which, I mean, it feels the same way even if you're in an audition room too, constantly going and maybe not booking. So anyway, so I did it. I worked with Whitney, and similar to my contracts, it's just 6 months. But literally, I'm like, wait, I knew exactly, like, this is what I wanted to do. So yeah, that was the beginning. That was like this weird evolution of just wanting a side job, kind of hearing about it, like getting a little closer. I'm like, oh, fitness. Although now I do fitness as well, but because that's still a passion. But yeah, mindset really is like at the core of everything else I do. So I feel like it's like foundational. Yeah, so that's how I at least learned about it and got started. Yeah, what next?
Good. That's awesome. Thank you so much for that. Yeah, that's quite an interesting journey. And you've actually coached me, and I've done some of your coachings and stuff. And like I think about how different a lot of things would have been if we had had this mindset work. Because the hard thing with performing and stuff, and anything, right? But like, we get rejected for a living, basically.
Right. Exactly.
And so it's so hard. And then like, we're emotional people. I mean, everyone's emotional, right? But like, we're emotional people, which is why we like to do this stuff, you know what I mean? And so it's just,
exactly.
Yeah, so it's very hard to not take it personally and to not be like, oh, I'm not talented, I'm not pretty, I'm not skinny, right. I'm not like all these things, so I love that. How has I mean, you're doing like all the things now. So how has that mindset coaching and training, and I'm actually doing Whitney's celebrity coaching thing. Um
Amazing.
it's
Oh,
super
and I'm close to
fascinating.
doing it too. I've been talking with her, and I've been like, Whitney, if you hear this, don't worry, I'm coming. It's just waiting for the right time. Yeah, no, I can't
Yeah.
wait to jump into what she's doing there.
Yeah.
How has it,
Yeah, how has it kind of like
sorry.
shaped what you're doing now, and like um how has your mindset changed, and then we'll get into more of that.
Yeah. Yeah, so much. I always like, I think because now I have it, it's like, okay, like I'm used to running, like living my life with that knowledge, but it's crazy to think back at I remember thinking in New York, like fresh out of college, like, man, if only I had these tools, like if
Mm-hmm.
only I understood like my thoughts and my feelings, and I understood what to listen to and what to not listen to. It was a whole different experience. You know, granted, I needed to obviously just learn, and my low is what like led me to find something that was so powerful.
Mm.
Um, but yeah, I mean, I like I love being able to basically help people so they don't have to like literally give up their career
Right.
to realize like before they realize that they can just have some mindset tools to gain some resilience, especially in a career like acting or the arts where it's so subjective and there's so much rejection. Like that's where it was. Like I'm a very resilient person to begin with. So I knew when I was like not myself anymore and I just couldn't find any hope in it. I couldn't find any optimism. And that's basically a lot of my clients come to me at that point where they're like, oh, I'm not quite like, I don't need like a therapist, but I need more than a call to my mom. Like, I just
Yeah.
need some help, like to like keep going. And, because we know what we genuinely want deep down, but sometimes it's just like maintaining, like I said, that resilience. Like that was like probably the first learning lesson for me is like, oh, how to manage your mind and your emotions.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah. And so,
no disrespect to moms, but like we need a little bit more, you know. Moms are great, and
yeah.
I've called my mom plenty, but it's like your mom's love for you does not get you jobs, unfortunately. Otherwise, I'd
Exactly.
be on Broadway by
On,
now.
yeah, we'd be so rich if we were up to our mamas for sure.
Yeah. That's awesome. That's great. Um and so I loved what you talked about. I love that you brought up therapy. So can you kind of explain to us how, and you and I have talked about this, but for the people, how is mindset work different from therapy? Obviously there's like a crossover, and you and I have talked about this and stuff because I was also doing therapy, I think, when I was coming to you. How
Mm-hmm.
is it different though? Because I feel like mindset is kind of like a little bit of a buzzword sometimes, and it's like I feel like people
Mm,
don't really know what that actually means or
totally.
what that looks like. So can you kind of explain how like mindset is different from therapy, and then kind of, if you can, like why it works, or kind of give us
Mm-hmm.
like your personal definition of what mindset is.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
So, yeah, mindset work and life coaching, mindset coaching. Yeah, there's definitely a difference. And while both are, I like to say like emotional management, they deal a lot with your thoughts and feelings. Um, Therapy is a lot of dealing with your past and your past traumas, and coming up to neutral, where life coaching or mindset coaching, because mindset coaching, just to be clear, is also it's just life coaching. I just like to narrow it in and let people really understand like my focus is mindset, because there's a big broad range of different
Mm-hmm.
types of life coaches,
Right.
but my focus is mindset work, thought work, mindfulness. So mindset coaching or life coaching in general is always from neutral. Like if you feel emotionally resilient, like you're at neutral and you want to move forward. If you have a lot of, like I said, past things you need to work out, go get that sorted out in therapy, where you feel like you're in a place where you're excited about the future and you want to progress and move forward. So it's a lot about looking forward, where therapy looks back and
Mm-hmm.
heals a bit more. And then another comparison I really like is therapy is like going to the doctor, and life coaching or mindset coaching is like going to the gym. It's like maintaining, it's building muscle, it's like building resilience, it's like the gym for your brain, which I love.
Nice. I love that analogy. We love a good analogy moment. That
I
was awesome.
know, I know.
Said the
Yes.
fitness coach.
That's right. But yes, exactly. You gotta build that muscle mentally and physically.
Yes. Okay, that's awesome. That's a great definition. I really like that. And so I feel like that there's been kind of, and maybe it's just my Instagram algorithm, but I feel like there's kind of been a bit of a surge in like mindset coaching or life coaching and things like that. Why have you noticed that? One, and two, why do you think that is nowadays? Because like,
Mm,
in junior
yeah,
high and high school, like never heard of her.
it was not a
even
thing.
even all
I
through
know.
college, never heard of it. Like obviously, like
No, truly.
we've talked about like the mind and stuff like that, because you talk about it in voice lessons, you talk about it in sports, like
Hmm.
there's that psychological component that like you talk about in these things. But like I feel like this mindset shift and coaching situation is like a whole different level of just like not psyching yourself out, you know what I mean? So
Yeah, yeah, it is kind of crazy. I was thinking about that too, and how like I don't know, the generations have like the what we focus on. I feel like we're, and maybe it's our generation too. It's like we've kind of had this like mental health crisis,
mm,
and I feel like the generation before us didn't really believe in that stuff, right? It's kind
mm-hmm.
of like, oh, you can just like snap out of it. What is anxiety? What? No.
Just
Or
be
like pray it
happy.
away, right? Like,
Yeah.
yeah, just be happy. It's all these things.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, like now, those poor millennials have really, you know, we've experienced a lot of that. And, but it's almost like we've gone to it's finding a balance, because then there was a while where it's like, no, 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 you like depression is real, anxiety is real, all these mental health illnesses are real, but also we don't want to just like claim that as our identity. So I feel like now, towards this era we're in right now, especially like Gen Z is coming up with a much more like healthy balance between the two, because I feel like it went from like, no, mental health is not even real, to now it's so real, but it's like, no, don't you dare just tell me to exercise, like that's not going to help. When in reality, now it's like a bit more balanced, like, okay, there is power in your thoughts, there is power in working out and getting endorphins, but it's also like we also just understand so much more about like our brain patterns and how to fix it. So I think people are just acknowledging that there is power in mindset work. But does that make sense?
Yeah, no, that totally makes sense. And I liked what you said about how like we don't want to be stuck in that like
Yeah,
place of like people who do have like depression or anxiety, or just in general, right? You don't have to like have
in
that,
general,
but
anything.
yeah, we don't want to be like stuck in a place, and we don't want like this to be my identity, or this to be who I am, or this to be my future either. As you said, going back to your
Right.
definition of it's looking towards the future, it's not just the
Yeah,
past. So
exactly.
yeah, no, that makes
Yeah,
total
and so
sense.
yeah, and so I think it's just finding a balance of like understanding that it's a real thing, where I think like previous generations, they just didn't even believe it was real, but now there is science to prove like the nervous system affects your anxiety and affects things and stress levels. Like it's so all intertwined. And
Mm-hmm.
so, yeah, so it's definitely a bit more mainstream now. It's not toxic positivity, where you just say things and like try to pretend like, it's going to make you feel better. And that's also what I learned with working with a coach, is like there is a science to like changing your thoughts or rewiring your brain and helping you feel better. It's not just like choose a happy thought and tell yourself that a million times. And I think
Right.
this is like a very big aha moment for me because, yeah, I'll go into this a little bit, is that like in New York when I was really low, I remember like reading all these like self-help books or like writing out like a mantra or affirmations, and it made me feel even more low because I was like, I've done it all. I've done the mindset, like I've done the like whatever, um, all the things, but then I judged myself because it didn't work. Because, but then I realized when I started working with a coach, like, yeah, because I was writing things that I didn't actually believe. Like it was way too far positive. Like it
Mm.
didn't connect with me at all. So it's like, that's what, when you work with a coach, like we help bridge the gap from where you are and where you want to be. And it's a very slow progression, but there is a science to like, moving through feelings and thoughts. And it's kind of like, I just love the moment where you see a client, like the difference from day 1 to 6 months. It's just like, it's so crazy to look back because it's a slow change, but all of a sudden you look at your life and you're like, wow, my life has changed in 6 months. I don't know. Would you agree
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
from your
yeah. Yeah,
experience?
just, I mean, yeah, on that note, I was just thinking about this as you were talking. When I was doing coaching with Cherie, I actually, and this is like kind of my thing that I gave you for your content or whatever, is like I flew to Boston to audition for Broadway. Because they had
Mm-hmm.
an open call for Six. And if you've listened to other episodes or if you know me at all, I'm obsessed with Six, and I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
and like look wise, personality wise, vocally, like I am a perfect match for that show. Like in every conceivable
Mm-hmm.
way. It's a little bit edgy, things like that. And like to fly across the country and go to, it was an open call, so it was a little bit of a different situation, but like to fly across the country by myself. I don't know anyone in Boston. The closest connection I have to Boston is that my mother is like randomly obsessed with Boston. Like we have zero ties. She visited it once and fell in love with it, but like we have zero ties to
Mm-hmm.
Boston. No one's gone to Harvard. No one lives there in our family. So to fly across
Mm-hmm.
the country and like go audition in front of a bunch of strangers when I like really hadn't been auditioning that much either, was like a huge step. I didn't get it obviously because I was like one of 600 women that showed up to this open call, and that's just how open calls go. But like,
Mm-hmm.
but I never would have done that. I would have been like, there would have been like, oh, I can't afford that, or oh, like I'm not skinny enough, or oh, like there were all these thoughts that were preventing me from doing like smaller scale auditions, and so then
Mm-hmm.
to just all of a sudden like jump straight to there, and like and that's what's crazy. Like I didn't get a call back. Like I think my actual audition was like 16 seconds or something because my accompanist like played my
Yeah.
music way faster than I told him to.
Oh,
And so I was like da, 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 da. So I was like,
sorry.
all right. But like to do that was crazy. And like what was amazing is we had kind of talked about like not just doing auditions just to audition and doing things that I was like really excited about.
Mm-hmm.
And so that ended
Yeah.
up like, even though it was like so much money and all this stuff for like very little reward, it was the most fun I've ever had an audition. And I
I
like,
love
and I
that.
nailed it too. Like, not a brag, but like I killed it, and I did the best I could.
Yes.
And then from there, it was out of my hands because that's just the industry. But like that was the best, most fun I've ever had an audition in my life, and I do not like regret that at all. You know what I mean? And I learned a
I
lot
love
from that
that.
and things like that. So yeah, just my own personal story of how it actually
Yeah.
helped.
No, I love that you can share. That's why I was excited for this because it's like, yeah, I get to share my side, but you also like literally witness and experience it as well. Just like my first experience working with Whitney, and then being able to see that with other clients, it's just like, oh, it's so like fulfilling and rewarding for me. Like I could have never expected. It's so cool.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I was super skeptical because I had seen you like posting stuff, and I'm one of those, you know who kind of comes from like a more logical perspective. I have a lot of medical professionals in my family too, and so I was like, oh, this doesn't work, blah blah blah. I was super skeptical. So what would you say to people who maybe think it's a little bit woo woo, as you've said before, or who are maybe a little bit skeptical? What could you share to maybe help kind of, I guess, dispel that vision of it? Because I was kind of in like a point where I was like, well, what I'm doing isn't working, and the definition of insanity is doing the same thing and getting no results. You know what I mean? So
right.
so I wasn't in like a low point per se, but like I was like, I gotta switch it up. I gotta do something, because something somewhere is holding me back. So what would you say to people who are skeptical or think it's like woo woo, like, I don't know, tree huggy things, or like,
right.
or something
I
like
know.
that.
Well, yeah. I mean, like I said, like it really, and hey, there are some woo woo coaches out there. Don't get me wrong, that are straight up woo woo.
No disrespect, but
no disrespect, totally. And we all, and that is the cool thing, is you can find a coach that really speaks to the way your brain works. And I think we have very similar brains. And like, I find clients that are similar to me because that's just how it works. Like, I'm drawn to them, they're drawn to me. Yeah, no, there's a science. Like I am a neuroscience nerd about it. Like it all started from like the neuroscience side. Like there's studies on how meditation changes the mass of your, of your brain. How the nervous system is all intertwined. I think one of the biggest aha moments for me is like learning that the mind is not something separate. Like your brain and your mind, it feels like that's like, oh, that's emotional, that's different. But no, it's literally physical. So learning how to manage your mind and manage your brain, it's all interconnected. So yeah.
Nice. I think, and I think coming from like the science side of it really helped me a lot, because I'm a little bit nerdy as well. Ironically, I never did well in science, but I like practical science that I can apply, so I love that, because like obviously there's like The Secret, if you've heard of that before. And I remember my mom made us watch that, and then she was listening to it in the car, like while she was like, we had a family movie night in our clubhouse.
Oh, that's so funny.
Watching The Secret with all the people and
way.
all the stuff.
I haven't watched it, but I obviously have heard about it.
Yeah.
And that is like the woo-woo side that you'll get from certain coaches. They'll be like law of attraction coaches or whatever. And here's the thing that I think is cool, whether you want to believe that there's like an energetic law of like manifestation or whatever. I know that, and this is probably a good place to go into like the way, how do I say this? Of course I can't think of the word, but the type of mindset coaching that I practice is I use the model, which is a self-coaching tool that Brooke Castillo with the Life Coach School created, where your thoughts create your feelings create your feelings motivate you into action, and those actions create your results. So that probably sounds familiar to you. It's been a hot second, but so that is the framework that I use, the formula. There you go. That's what I was looking for. That is the formula that I use with all my sessions with all my clients. That's like, it's pretty general psychology. It's been studied for years and years that your thoughts create your feelings. And then the feelings will drive you into an action, and that action creates your results. So
can you give us like an example of that, maybe in your life or anonymously in a client's life or whatever?
Totally. So
because like it makes sense, but it's like, it's kind of hard to visualize that sometimes.
I know. And I actually I literally it's like a literal formula. Like I will write it down during sessions. Like you write down a T and you write down the thought it's attached. You write down the F and you write down the feeling. And this is like the amount of like work we really, and that's why we also call it thought work. Literally get in and you literally do work on your thoughts. And I want to say too, before I got involved in this was a really big missing link for me. I had lots of feelings, like you were mentioning, you too, like us artists, like that is one of our gifts. Like we feel deeply. That's why we're in this work. And that's why we're good at storytelling and connecting to others and all of that. But I always sometimes would get lost in like, is it the feeling or is it the thought? Like, is it what comes first, you know? And I don't know why, but nobody taught me this. Nobody taught me this growing up. And I feel like it should be like in like kindergarten.
Yeah, me neither.
Yeah. And especially I will say like growing up in like a religion, you know, where we value like our feelings so much, sometimes it would get really confusing because you pay attention to your feelings so much that sometimes you put too much emphasis on it and when you don't need to. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so this work has given me like the ability to like find clarity with my thoughts and like my intuition and if there's like a difference. Do you know, does that make sense?
Yeah.
So we can like touch on that a little bit later, but that was like a huge deal for me, is understanding what are just my thoughts and what feelings I'm creating just with my own brain and my own like obsessive thoughts. Okay, you're gonna have to keep me on track here, so let me go back.
You're good. You're good. You're doing great.
Okay, good. So an example of using the model would be, well, we also have a circumstance. So say the circumstance is always neutral. And so, for example, right now, oh gosh, what can I think of? Shoot, putting me on the spot.
I know.
Oh, okay. Well, this is one that we use in all of our coach training a lot. The circumstance is that I'm a human. I have a body. That's it. It's me. I have a body. That's a circumstance. The thought can also be, I should have prepared this better. Let's say I usually use this for a different example actually, but the thought would be I love my body. That thought creates a feeling of like gratitude, and the result is that I treat my body well because I'm full of gratitude. Kind of a thing. Now that's like really, really basic. But what if like you have struggle with like body image or something? So you have a body. That's the circumstance. It's always neutral. It's always the thought about the circumstance that's going to determine how you feel.
It's just kind of like
maybe you're like
baseline kind of.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
This
and
is
it's a
factual.
good reminder to be like, yeah, yes, exactly. A circumstance can be proven in law. It's just neutral. It's factual. There's no like
that's your
thoughts or
opinion.
feelings. Yeah, there's no opinions. And that's when you get to really determine, when you write it down, you look at it, you're saying, am I coding this with an opinion or is this actual fact? You know what I mean? So then you could be like, yeah, I don't know if I want to use that one for another, but it just makes you really look at your thoughts and be like, okay, wait, is this fact? Do I need to feel this way because I'm actually looking at it through a negative lens? And then you can use it in a positive way too, or like you can help clean up your thoughts if they're a little too negative, but you can also use it to like make you more inspired and just like proactively like create exciting thoughts. You know, it's not just about like getting rid of negative thoughts. It's also about like thoughts that are inspiring you, you know? So we just get into the nitty gritty of your thoughts and your feelings. And sometimes people feel their feelings first. So they'll notice a feeling that they're feeling, and then we'll have to track back and be like, okay, but what thought is actually triggering that feeling? And so it just depends on how you work. Some people are overthinkers and they hear thoughts and their thoughts never stop. Yeah. And so we work on like noticing the thoughts, and sometimes, you know, I call it mental whack-a-mole, when you have like a power thought to help like stop the spiral, you know, stop the Ferris wheel. Or some people don't understand their thoughts, but they feel lots of feelings, but they don't know why. They're just really stressed. And I'm like, well, why? And they'll be like, oh, well, it's because I have to get this done. And I'm like, but do you have to get this done? And it's like, oh no, I just feel like I am responsible for everybody. And, you know, if I'm not, I'm a failure. Or if I don't get it done, you know, it's like this, it's crazy. That's the rabbit hole of our thoughts. And once you find awareness to what you're thinking, what you're feeling, you can literally like break that circuit in your brain. And that's another thing. It's truly creating new neural pathways in your brain. It's not just like, oh, I'm just going to say things and stop saying things. It's literally practicing, practicing your brain from thinking ways you don't want it to. And anyway, it's literally creating new neural pathways.
Yeah. And it sounds simple, but it's not. it's super hard.
And that's actually exactly like, it sounds simple, but like it's, and it is simple, but it takes time, right? If that makes sense. Like it takes time and it takes work because, I had a number for it. It's like, how many times you have to say a thought before it's like creates that new neural pathway, but it takes a lot of repetition. Let's just say that. And that's another thing I like to mention is that a belief, like sometimes, so a belief is just a thought you've had thousands of times. That's it. So like the things that we believe in our heart that are so true, that feel true to us, it's really just a thought that we've said our whole life. And that's where we can get like in trouble with, not in trouble, but like can be dangerous, because if we've been telling ourselves like a limiting thought or limiting belief, that's where you're going to hear that term, like our whole life. It's just a thought that feels true to us because we've told ourselves that so many times, or maybe by our conditioning, by our parents, by something. So it's just like it's a huge lesson on self-awareness, clearing out any of the mental cobwebs that are keeping you from living the life that you want to live, whether it was conditioning from somebody else or just your own negative self-talk. Oh, there's so much to it. And it's like so cool though to like unpack it and see where it can take you when you do get to like clear out all the negative programming, or just like the programming that you don't want anymore. Like it doesn't even have to be like negative as much as just like that's not your focus. So it's like, let's create this new identity, you know?
Yeah, totally. Yeah. And I like that you said it's kind of a constant work, you know, because I know when I was doing it and then doing Whitney's stuff, like and part of it that I like about mindset coaching too specifically is that it just like kind of gets you aware of things, you know, because sometimes like I noticed when I did coaching and then doing Whitney's celebrity thing, like I go back and forth, you know, because I'm a dreamer. I have big goals, like all these things. And then like something would happen, and then I'm like, oh my gosh, like this is so discouraging. Like I'm embarrassed, or like this, that, or the other, you know. And it's just like a constant back and forth all the time. And so even just doing that helped me be just aware of my own mind. And I felt like I feel like there's a lot of kind of power and release. I know you and I talked a lot about like taking your power back and stuff back in the day, and it's like there's just like a power in at least just being aware of your own mind, because I think there's sometimes that we're like that like we don't realize, you know, X, Y, and Z is happening unless someone is like pointing
100%.
unless someone is like pointing that out and you're like actively looking for it, you know. It's kind of that psychology thing of like, if you're thinking about a red car, you're gonna notice all the red cars or whatever, you know. But like,
oh my gosh, you nailed it. That's literally like, yes, that's in my notes. Like that is actually like written here. That's like normally how I start talking about this thing is that, okay, going back to the science, and this is why don't let me forget manifestation. I have to tie it back together because I technically but yeah, so like we have this thing called the reticular activating system, and it's just a part of our brain, a system in our brain. Okay, it's very important, but it's like a filter that filters out anything that it feels like is not important / pays attention to what it thinks is important. And so like, what is that? It's whatever we tell it is important. So the things that we repeat to ourselves over and over is going to think that that's important. So it's like, and that's why if you have a red car, you start seeing all the red cars, because your brain knows that like, oh, I need to remember what my car looks like. So then all of a sudden you're driving and you just start seeing your car everywhere, because now your brain knows that's very important. What's another one? But yeah, oh, that's so good about, oh, I already lost
No,
my
you're
train of
good.
thought, but it's all interconnected there. And yeah, just the awareness, you're mentioning awareness, like that alone is so powerful. Like that's it. I mean, I spend like sometimes just the first months just learning how to be aware of our thoughts and feelings. Um, because some people aren't aware of it, and then some people are aware but they don't understand the impact that it has on how they feel or just their results in general. Like it's like you can say you want to change your life, but like why aren't you?
Mm-hmm.
And it's not until you really build that awareness to why that you know you won't change.
Yeah. Yeah.
um and then the blind spot, that's kind of like, that's a perfect segue into sharing like what a life coach or a mindset coach does. Is like, so funny, I literally wrote that down too, is like, I guess I should have said that at
No,
the
you're
beginning
good.
then, so thank you for taking it taking it away. But yeah, like I help be able to notice people's blind spots. I'm trained to notice the patterns that maybe you don't see,
Mm-hmm.
that are getting in your way from your big
Yeah,
goals.
and you can look at it kind of like
So
therapy. You can look at it like objectively, you know, and
mm-hmm.
kind of lay it out. Because
Right.
that's kind of how I feel. That's what kind of like got me into therapy as well. Is it's like someone pointed out to me, like, it's not just like you don't have to have all these mental health issues. Like, it's kind of just nice to talk to an
Mm-mm.
objective third party who can just look at the whole thing
Right.
and like point out these little things that like a biased family member just wouldn't catch or is not trained to catch. Like, you know what I mean?
Right.
So,
Exactly.
yeah.
Yeah. And to be fair, like I never really found a therapist that I just loved. Like I didn't see any improvement, but that was just
Mm-hmm.
with me. Like I've had somebody say that their therapist taught them a lot of the same things that I
Mm-hmm.
was learning from my life coach. And so I was like, oh, so obviously all therapists are not created equal, but this is also interesting as far as like why some people don't feel like they're seeing progress, because the reticular activating
Mm-hmm.
system, right? The more you focus on something. So if you're just going to talk therapy and you're just talking about your past over and over, and you're just like, I'm going to therapy, I'm doing what they're saying to do, but I just still feel so stuck. Well, it's like, because you are, because literally you're just focusing on your past. You're literally not focusing on anything to actually move forward. Do
Yeah.
you know what I mean? And so that's what I love about, and that's about coaching, is that it really does give you very clear tools on moving forward and setting goals and doing it in a healthy way and
Mm-hmm.
all of
Yeah, yeah. So you talked about
that.
manifesting, and I know that's kind of like a big thing nowadays. Like a friend of mine actually got me these like um what are they, like manifestation cards, but like for singers, and stuff like that. And so I
Mm,
have like a little card every day that's like some new manifestation or some quote or whatever. So how does
right.
manifesting, because it's kind of like a buzzword, and again sometimes it feels it I
Mm-hmm.
feel like the way that we see it, at least on social media, because I follow all these like mindset pages too and stuff, and I feel like it kind of
Mm-hmm.
oversimplifies it again. So how does
Yeah.
because like just say it, and it's kind of back to the secret thing where it's like, oh, if you say it, then the universe is like, yes, it is yours, and that's just like not how things work. So how does mindset coaching and manifestation kind of work together at a deeper level than like just the cutesy little quotes that we get in a fortune cookie or whatever?
Right. Yeah. And that's where I want to say, like, I don't have all the answers. I have, like, because of this work, of course, I think it does sometimes, like, send you into, like, other more, like, I call it woo woo parts of the
Yeah.
internet, and, like, learning about what actual manifestation or law of attraction type stuff. And, some people are, like, absolutely against it. Some people are, like, all about it, but I think it's interesting, because I found such power in thought work, like in noticing, whatever you're directing your thoughts, like whatever you focus on is your
Mm-hmm.
result. Like, it's like a self-fulfilling prophecy, right? And that's like literally, if we go back to the reticular activating system, it's the same thing. It's like whatever you're focusing on, you will see. So there is that sense of like, oh, it feels really similar to manifesting. Now if there is like an energetic law, like I don't know,
Yeah.
I don't go that far into it, but And there probably is like a whole nother world that's sharing all the secrets on how to do it right, quote unquote, the
Yeah,
secret.
right.
But I will say, I think the going back to like having affirmations or thoughts that you don't actually believe, like that's a big part of the mindset work. And that's kind of a big key that I help people, like I coach people on finding the thoughts. Like I said, you can't go from something feeling like negative to like a super positive thought. Like if it doesn't resonate in your body, if you don't feel it in your system, like it's just not going to actually motivate you to take action, because it just is a thought. It's just an affirmation. It's not connecting with you. So I think manifestation like does deal with like that. So there's like a weird inner connection of it all,
Yeah.
but I don't go that far
Yeah.
into it.
And it kind of
but
depends on the person
but
for
yeah.
that kind of stuff, right? Because like, yeah, like I've
Yeah.
had people like just say stuff to me because they might think that's what I want to hear or whatever, and then like their actions prove later that like, oh, they didn't actually mean it, I guess, or whatever, and so yeah, sometimes like affirmations and things like that I'm a little skeptical of, whereas like I know I had a friend in college who was like, I don't even care if you compliment me and you don't mean it, like I love it. So I think that's what's cool, is like everyone's a little different, whereas I kind of need like, you can say whatever you want, but if you can't back it up with actions, it doesn't mean anything to me. So I think I just like what you
Yeah.
said, like the affirmation and manifestation stuff, like we do go into it a little bit because obviously you got to believe in yourself, right? But
Right.
yeah, I
Yeah.
think it kind of depends on the person, and some people just respond better to that, and that like inspires them or whatever. So
Yeah. And it's cool because, like, I mean, like I said, there's like studies on meditation and visualization. So there's like a lot of power with the mind. It's just kind of, if you're a more logical side and you like to like learn about the brainy neuroscience side, which I like, I like a little bit of both. I think there's a nice little fine line between both, allowing yourself, especially as creatives, like say, like we talked a lot about your future self, like tapping into your future you, and that takes creativity and it takes daydreaming and visualizing and stuff. So there's like, I guess you could call it your own like little magic, but yeah. And like I said, there's coaches that will work on it from all angles. But as far as the mindset work, there's definitely a clear type of mindset coach that uses like the model, and those would be like life coach school certified, or people who are mentored under like Brooke Castillo. Like Tony Robbins is also a life coach and works with mindset, but kind of has like a different formula that he uses. So everyone's like a little bit different, but I love the model and like the thought work and the mindfulness behind it
yeah,
all.
cool. Yeah, I like a little bit of both as well, just kind of like you. But
Mm-hmm.
if it goes too far into the affirmation side, I'm like, okay, you're weird now. you know. Uh,
Yeah, yeah. At that point, yeah, they're probably not exactly a mindset
yeah.
coach.
I love, so what we worked on back in the day, and you're a perfect example of this. Is you talked about how all of these things that you do. So you're a mindset coach, you're a yoga instructor, you still do spin, right? Spin or cycling?
I just
Okay.
yeah, I did. I just barely finished. I'm moving on to a new
Nice.
studio.
Cool.
But still group
Yeah, and
fitness.
then
Yeah.
you're doing like acting for film stuff, and then you're doing like some theater stuff, right? And just like all the things.
I do it
So,
all.
how has and I think this is something that again our generation, but maybe a little bit older as well. I've noticed it in some people in my life kind of are stuck a little bit. How has mindset and using yourself as an example, if that's okay, help you reach all of these things? Because I know you and I talked about like not being in a box, and I feel like a lot of other people put
Hmm.
people in a box, and then we put ourselves in boxes, and it's like, and I have to constantly explain to some of my older coworkers, or my parents, it's
Hmm.
like, I understand that the typical metrics or matrix is like, go to work, do a 9 to 5, do full-time stuff, blah blah blah. And I've had to explain time and
Hmm.
again that like I actually like having two jobs. I like the variety it brings in my life. I like how it's different. Like I like
Yep.
teaching voice and I like audio engineering, and then I like having my side hustle, you know, like I like doing all these things. And I
Mm-hmm.
remember we've talked about too, and something I'm proud of is that like I was told I was going to be a waitress in New York, you know, my whole life if that's what I wanted to do, or be a school teacher. And it's not that there's anything wrong with those things, but it's like shocking to me how young I was when people already started putting me in a box, you know. And fortunately, like
Yeah.
I'm a stubborn Italian woman, you know, so I was like, no, no, you know. And so like fortunately that didn't hold me back, but I feel like it's holding a lot of people back nowadays, especially in this economy with this uh like this kind of workflow. I think we're seeing a lot more of that. So how, like, what did you
Yeah.
do with mindset or just in general your journey that allowed you to kind of just be like, oh, I can do fitness, I can do this, I can do this, like, you know, like, because you're doing a lot of stuff and you're loving all of it. And I feel like we all kind of get stuck like, oh, you have to have the one job and you have to do the one thing. And it's like, and it's kind of weird if
Mm-hmm.
you're, you know, a jack of all trades person or whatever. So what would you say to that? And like, how has mindset like unlocked that for you? Because I would like to have a similar journey and I'm working on that, you know. Like I'm you and I have a lot of different have a lot of interests, and it's like I love theater and I love
Mm-hmm.
music, but it's like I also love this. And it's like if I can make money doing that,
Yeah.
sign me up, you know?
Why
So
not?
yeah. Can you
Right?
walk us kind of through that? Because
Exactly.
I think a lot of people are stuck in boxes, or that limiting belief you were talking about of like I
Mm-hmm.
have to do this because this is how it's always been done and this is how I was taught and this is, you know, security or comfort or whatever, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. That is like probably the main topic, or the main thing I coached people on when I first started. It really felt like, and that's why originally my coaching company was called like Millennial Mindset, because I do feel, especially like in the millennials, I don't know, we've wanted to branch out, but we felt like we had to do it a certain way, that 9 to 5, like our parents. But that's such a big one. It all comes down to conditioning. I mean, it really does. I also worked with somebody who's become like a travel blogger, and she literally like is a travel consultant and travel blogger, and like travels full time. And it felt like the whole time we were just trying to rewire, like allowing her just her allowing herself to live this life that she wanted to. And it's just because, literally, like I said, a belief is just a thought. We've thought a million times. We've grown up in, whatever surrounding. And it might just be the surrounding that me and you are used to. And like, there's plenty of other areas that probably don't have that. Like, that's not a thing for them. And so that's when you realize it really is just your perception and the programming that you've grown up with. And just learning to be okay with choosing your life, to literally strip away anybody else's thoughts and opinions, including the ones that like are in your head because that's what you were raised around. I spent literally like all of my 20s trying to like deprogram that for myself, because I kept thinking, well, and I also kept thinking, okay, well, if I leave New York, am I going to have to go like live in the suburbs and get pregnant right now and be a stay-at-home mom? Like, I don't know why. It was like one or the other. It was like, I'm either going to be the actor in New York, or I'm going to have to just like go have 10 kids tomorrow in a white picket fence. I don't know. Not 10 kids. That was never actually, no.
That is a lot.
But that was never a real thought there. But yeah, so it was me too. It was like, and then once I realized like I had the power to choose whatever life I wanted, and like I truly started like shedding whatever the opinions or whatever I thought, because I actually thought too, like I thought I would want a certain life. That's another thing. Like, there's one thing to be like, oh wait, that's what my family wants, but I don't know about you, like maybe when you graduated from college, like did you think you were going to be like, I thought I'd be happy in a 9 to 5, or like I always wanted to be an actor, but like I thought that I could also like work a restaurant job. 5 days a week and I'd be happy. Well, I wasn't. I was miserable. I was like, I can't do
Mm-hmm.
this. Like, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, and so as you just go through the growing pains of growing up, you kind of realize like what speaks to your soul and what doesn't, and what like you literally hate and what you love. I knew I still loved acting, but I was like, okay, well, what can I do as a side job? And that's why I really do feel like I tried literally everything, and sometimes it's just trial and
Mm-hmm.
error. And then I just kept getting a little closer and a little closer, and this felt more fulfilling to me, and I started realizing the things that I need in my life that make me feel fulfilled and connected. Connection to people is one thing. Focusing on growth, like these are things that I've learned that are important for me, where like I wasn't getting it from working the restaurant job in New York, or even retail. I also did eyelash extensions. I mean, I've done so many random things. But like, I've learned the things that make me happy. And then eventually you just have to trust that. And so when I found coaching, I was like, yes, wow, this is it. And then along the ride, because I still perform locally, which I'm so lucky to have a theater that I actually like. It's a working theater. It's not even community theater. So I'm so grateful that I still get to like work in theater. I do commercial shoots like here and there. Just did one last week. And then I have clients, mindset clients, but then I also, and it was on the verge of biting too much off, but I did finally reach out to like a group fitness studio about possibly doing the fitness thing, because I had mentioned before I got into life coaching, I thought it was going to be fitness. But then I realized that life coaching and mindset coaching was just that level of depth that was more fulfilling for me. It was more about like true like life work, not just like your physical goals. So for me, it was a step deeper that I just loved. But I still have a passion for fitness, and also as a performer, group fitness, like it's just like the perfect thing. It's like encompasses all that I love, like being in a room full of people, hyping people up, motivating them in whichever which way, with music, with my own little like motivational mindset moments. I mean, it really is like kind of perfect for me. And then you tie in yoga, then it's also a little bit more mindset and mindfulness, but also movement. I mean, so I really feel like I found like the trifecta for me, which is like performing and acting still. But now I don't feel so desperate because I have these other things such as mindset coaching, that's a job. And then I have fitness, and it's fulfilling and it's a job. So, and I say, screw it. I probably look like I have all these different things, but it fulfills me and I'm still working, but I'm happiest just having variety in my life, But 10 years ago, I probably would have been like,
Yeah,
what?
yeah, literally. And yeah, I like that you said you have, variety in your life, because like us artsy fartsy types, like even and it's
We're
and
unique.
it's interesting too. And I think a lot of people, I think business people are this way too, like entrepreneurs. It's just maybe a little bit more socially
Mm-hmm.
sexy and can be more lucrative potentially, right? So I think entrepreneurs are
Mm-hmm.
that way like
Oh,
all
yeah.
the time too, so it's not just artists and stuff, but like even
No, yeah.
yeah, even the arts though can be monotonous, like I was watching an interview with some
Mm-hmm.
Broadway person, and they were like, yeah, I'm exhausted and blah 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 blah, and I was like, how are you not like living the dream right now, so I think even there. And then like in college too, and this is because it was like a classical emphasis, but in college I remember I had to go through, so you had to go through like the 4 levels of music theory, right? And so like
Mm-hmm.
for 4 semesters straight, which doesn't sound like a lot, but holy crap, it felt like a lot. For 4 semesters straight, I had to do music theory, sight singing, dictation, and it just like got harder and harder and harder. And then I had to do a music history class, and it was just like way to take the fun out of something that is like
Mm-hmm.
amazing and fun. Like music is so cool, it's so broad,
Yeah.
and I was like, I am losing my actual mind. And then add it to the fact that like theory 3
Yeah.
and 4 was not useful as a singer at all. But that's a separate issue. But like
Yeah, that's
yeah.
way not
No,
necessary.
it was not. I haven't used it once, and I actually get paid to do music. So, but like even the arts,
Seriously.
like anyone can make something like kind of monotonous, and so having that kind of
Mm-hmm.
refresh or having something to kind of spice it up just makes life interesting and fun. You know, as I was saying, like if I was stuck at a desk all day, I think I would lose my mind. You know what I mean?
Mm.
And there's no
Yeah.
disrespect to any of those things. Like most of the people in my life have a normal job, you know, that's reliable and steady and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And that's fulfilling for them because they love their field or whatever. You know what I mean? But yeah, and what you
Yeah.
said, I really relate to what you said as well, of how like this fulfills you, and you thought you wanted one thing. I said in an earlier podcast episode, it was like the journey that got me here. And so I talked about like how
Yeah.
I've always known what I've wanted. I'm never the girl that is like, oh, I don't know what I want to eat, I don't know, like, you know, I've never been the kind of person who's like, I don't know, whatever you want, blah, blah. Like I always know what I want, and I always have an opinion on something, partly why I started a podcast. But yeah, I always knew like I wanted to be an MDT like you were, and I wanted to like do all these things. And I knew when I was like a freshman in high school, I was like, this is what I want. And I
Mm-hmm.
didn't get what I want. And so that's kind of what led me to like audio engineering, which was like my practical way of staying in theater. And it's so fun. And it's like,
Mm-hmm.
and I love telling people like my audio engineering has made me a better performer, and my performance experience has made me a better audio engineer. And it's like usually they're very separate, especially in the theater
Yeah.
world. Like you probably don't interact with your sound person or your
Right.
lighting person very much, right? And like they would rather die than be on
Right.
stage. And so it's so fun to like be in that in between where it's like this actually helps me in both fields. And then I pass that on to
Yeah.
my voice students too. I'm like, if you were singing that way with that technique and I was mixing you, I'd want to kill you, you know, like, because it's gonna make my job, it's
I
gonna
love
make my
that.
job as an engineer harder, you know, and things like that. And then
Right.
like we've talked about this too, looking back on what I thought I wanted, like I might have gone through
Mm-hmm.
kind of that low point that you and a lot of other people in your class went through with like music and that
Mm-hmm.
lowness and stuff like that, because you know, the MDT program wasn't perfect either. And you know, and like I
Nope.
think about if I had gotten what I wanted, would I have all these skills, would I like have all these experiences, you know what
Right.
I mean? And so I loved
Yeah.
that you shared that, and I'm so happy that you're like killing it and doing all these amazing things that you love, because it's like you, like
Thank
it's just
you.
life is too short to have a career in something you hate, you know what I mean? And I've seen people, yeah, I've seen
Yeah.
people who like just try and make it through, and they're like it's a job or whatever, and it's like they kind of hate their lives though. You know, and it's just, and that's like that's
Right.
so sad to like, you can make money doing something you enjoy, at least as like a side
Mm-hmm.
hustle at the very least, or you know, as a hobby that, you know, whatever, you know. And I just think that things get limited a lot, and I think other people are so
Yeah.
limited in themselves that they're just like ready to put that limit on
Mm-hmm.
others, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's what's crazy is like we limit ourselves, like, and it's it's just wild. Going back to the whole awareness thing, like learning what you
Mm-hmm.
want, and then sometimes like you think you want something, like you said, you thought you wanted that, but now you realize how the tools and like how well-rounded you are now with like the tech side of it all, and you're still literally living, like you're still getting to perform and stuff like that. And then for me, like I'm kind of in a new phase where like I would have said like I wanted Broadway so bad, and like I still, heck, I'm not saying no to it, but I'm also saying like I am I I have to work on my identity shift now, because it's like I actually know I'm probably more fulfilled right now. Like I've literally learned how to kind of just follow the feelings of joy and fulfillment now, instead of the what I thought I want, and like, or what other people think you should want. And so trusting that you're on the right path, and that these feelings of joy and fulfillment, like they're enough right now. Like I sometimes, what I'm trying to say is that we still limit ourselves, like just from years and years of saying I want to be a New York actor. But when I really sit down and think about it, it's like I don't actually want to do that anymore. So I need to let that like go for now.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like, because I am like, and start focusing on like how I feel right now with this like world that I've created in Charleston, because I truly am the most happy I've ever been. But our egos and like our brain patterns get caught up on like what we thought we wanted for so long, you know? And so it's like, it's so crazy that we do that to ourselves, but it's how the brain works. And that's why I think it's powerful to like understand how our brain works and patterns, and learning how to like release old identities. And like I said, I'm not releasing it completely, but
Right.
like, you know, I need to allow myself to step into this world that I have created and like find joy in what I have now, because there is joy. You know, sometimes people get caught up on things that might not actually bring them true fulfillment. It's just like what they thought would bring them true fulfillment for so long.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah,
That makes sense.
totally. Yeah, do you just feel like so free now? Like,
I do. Like that is the best word to describe it. Like I feel like I finally released like any of my own like fears of like I feel like I'm like, if I'm supposed to be on Broadway, like it's gonna happen. I'm gonna meet the people. Like I mean, even things have happened here. I've already gone up and like been personally sent up for a callback for a national tour because of somebody that I've met through here doing something that brought me so much like joy here. And it's like enough enough of that all or nothing thinking, where like, remember how I said I would be in New York and I'd be like, oh, I either have to be here and I have to be in the grind and I have to learn how to be happy, or I have to go and like be in a white picket fence and start having kids and be at home, like stay at home mom. Like none of that anymore. It's like, no, like I'm gonna follow my joy, and every little and I mean, you've heard this before, but everyone says like follow the breadcrumbs, you know? And so that's kind of what I feel like, even just like reaching out to my friend who was managing at this new group fitness studio, like that was a small breadcrumb. I kind of kept ignoring it for a little bit, and then I finally did it. And now I'm like, wow, that's another aspect of my life that I feel like is really important to me. Um, and I couldn't even imagine my life without that now. And I'm still doing all the things. So it's just like, just trust yourself, like just trust what brings you joy, and like you, just like you said, like your whole journey was like about stepping back into your power. Like that's what it comes down to. It comes down to like you learning how to live the life you want
yeah,
to live.
totally.
Oh,
Um,
just love it.
yes, yeah, it's great. How would you say, what piece of advice would you give to people on social media? Because I sometimes love to go to the comment section and just for a good time, you know? But like sometimes people are really mean too, and they're very limiting. Like I feel like
Yeah.
I follow a lot of moms somehow, or I have a lot of friends who are moms. I am not a mom or close to being one, but like there's always hatred on moms, and like, you know, you're not doing this and you're not, you know what I mean? So what is, like, if you could give, this kind of putting you on spot a little bit again, you're welcome. uh if there's like a piece of advice you could give to kind of like shut out the haters, so to speak, like, because
Mm-hmm.
obviously like just
Mm.
ignoring it is not really an option, right? And like that's not very helpful, you know? Or like just like not being on social media is easier said than done as well, you know? I know for me, like, that's the only way I communicate with people most of the time, and like stay connected with
Mm-hmm.
people. And I tried doing a social media fast, and I actually felt like really lonely, you know? um
Yeah.
so
Oh, I like love social
yeah, me too.
media.
I like, and I've like blocked all the people that are negative now. So I just see happy stuff all
Yeah,
the
I mean
time.
that's
Yeah.
important.
So what if you could give,
Well, that's not a
yeah,
bad
yeah.
idea.
If you could give like any sort of mindset coach piece of advice to how to at least deal with like the realities of the social media world we live in, what would you say?
Do you mean in regards to like people who are getting hate or giving hate?
Probably mostly getting hate, I would say,
Getting.
because people who are
I'm
giving hate have a lot of things they need to work through, and that feels like a therapy thing
Yeah,
and not a
exactly.
mindset thing.
Totally. Yeah, totally. Yeah, I mean, it kind of does come down to, I do feel like it would be about building your resilience to like knowing that, just the awareness that you said right there, like the people that are giving hate are people that like have their own self-love
Mm,
issues, right? Like they do need to, they have their own things that they should be working on. So I feel like just understanding that, and that is a big thing I've learned from mindset, is like understanding that the lens that we look out of is like only our
Mm-hmm.
own lens. So when you see such hate spewed from other people, it's like, it's never personal. It's
I
never
like that.
personal. And that's, I mean, it sucks that it's like on your page. And that's when I'd say unblock, block, block. Because I do think like, that's a thing. Like I've just learned to surround myself with people that make me feel myself, that make me feel loved. Like a big thing for me is spending time with people that inspire me. In fact, like that's why I reached out to Whitney the very first time. I think all my best moves are when I am around people that uplift me and that like inspire me in some way. And so if that's the people in your comments, I know that's hard,
Yeah.
man. That is what social media. You either have to work with a mindset coach on how to build that
I know.
resilience, on not letting it affect you because you know it's really not personal. Sometimes there are things that it can trigger in you that maybe you do need to look at. But I think overall, social media, that's not one to put too much stock into because they don't
Yeah.
even know you, you
Yeah.
know?
That's totally true.
So
Yeah,
that's a
and
tough
maybe like
one, but
also too like letting because I've been posting a lot more recently and stuff like that, and like, since doing this podcast and stuff, like having that resilience to not let like low like counts or low, not
mhm.
even just comments, because like I don't have people commenting on my stuff right now, but like, sometimes I'll get discouraged that like, oh, like only 6 people liked this, like how am I supposed to like build a business or build a brand,
Mhm.
or you know what I mean, because it's like social media is such a big thing. So I think that
Yeah,
resilience, I'm glad that you said that. That's
totally.
good. That's a good plan.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like similar to anything, whether it's like the resilience to keep auditioning, it's the resilience to like keep showing up and posting, whether you get 2 likes or
Yeah.
200, you know what I mean? And just notice like where your thoughts are. Like, are you obsessing over the likes, or, is there a deeper why behind it? Like, why are you posting to begin with? And then you just, I would say, like, guide your mind, like guide your thoughts to be looking, did I know when I first started posting about mindset work, I didn't get a lot of likes, but I was getting a lot of like genuine engagement as like, so it's not that it was popping off, but the few things that people would share with me or I'd get like a message would be like really sincere. So it's like you just never know what you're really like, if you're touching somebody, or if you made somebody smile, like you just don't know, and you just want to help guide your mind to like why think on the negative side of it. It's so much easier. Our brains do it naturally. But this would be like good mindset work to practice, like learning how to become more resilient to that and look on the bright side, be a little bit more optimistic, have a power thought. I like to call them power thoughts. If something comes up a lot for you, that's like maybe spiraling you down a little bit into like a low mood or something, that can help keep you lifted, because sometimes our thoughts aren't even logical. Sometimes, we're just making things up, like, oh, they all hated it because there's 2 likes. It's like, no, maybe you change those 2 people's life, even though they're 2 people.
Yeah,
That's still good.
totally. Totally.
you know it's just all
Yeah.
perspective.
Yeah. Perspective's
So
super important, and that's kind of what's kept me like doing the podcast and stuff, and like and
mhm.
posting the things that I want, like, because it's actually, I've had to like remind myself I'm still doing all of our mindset work that like we worked on like all the time.
Yes,
um
yeah, I mean, I am
yeah.
too.
And
It's a constant
yeah, yeah,
thing.
yeah. And just like remembering that like this is actually just really fun, like, you know
Yes. Yeah, and like that's what I would call a power thought, is like when you feel like you're like upset with something, with maybe that an outcome, or maybe the outreach isn't as much, but like, why are you doing it? And then just, you'd be surprised if you just remind yourself this is really fun. Now the thing I would check in with is, do you actually
yeah.
believe it's really fun? And if you're really feeling, if saying that thought really creates like this excitement in your body and this like feeling of gratitude, then like keep using that. Now if it's feeling like it actually is not becoming fun, well, that's
Mm.
something to notice, and then dig a little deeper and like, okay, well, why are you doing it, and what else can help motivate
Yeah,
you to keep
totally,
going?
totally. Yeah.
Because I feel the same way, even like going to the theater. Don't tell my bosses, but it's like, like it's exhausting putting on a show like multiple times a night and having to be warmed up. And I hate doing my hair and makeup. Like I'm so not a high maintenance girly. So it's like, and I want my voice to be more, I want, like, I'm a perfectionist, but once again, there I am, perfectionism getting in my way from something that I love. And so sometimes I do have to take a moment, and that's why I love celebrating like as often as I can, because sometimes I do just like forget and our brains want to be like,
Yeah.
wah, wah, wah. Like this is annoying or this isn't, but sometimes the easy thing, the comfortable thing isn't actually what speaks to our soul. And like, we have to remind ourselves, no, we love this. Like, this is actually so cool that I get to do this for work or just even
Yeah.
for fun. Like, it's just good to do
Yeah,
fun
totally.
things.
Yeah, I want to touch on something you just said about the celebrations real quick. Yeah, okay, so you talked about celebrating. What is that? Obviously I know, but what is that, and what does that kind of look like, and how is that different from like what we've already talked about with manifestation and affirmations and
Yeah.
stuff like that? What does celebrating mean in this world?
Um, for for me, celebrating is just a cutesy way of showing gratitude. Because I think that's just like one, when you feel gratitude in your body, your brain literally creates oxytocin. So I mean, more happy brain chemicals. So it's like, once again, learning that the mindset is literally connected to our physical body and our physical like hormones and like how our brain feels, our energy levels, like all the things. So but it's also part of just creating new patterns. So the more you remind yourself, right? Like the more, whatever you focus on becomes your reality. So the more you remind yourself of those things that you're grateful for, or that you're celebrating, the more you're creating the new pattern. So for me, celebrating is a huge, huge aspect of coaching and something I use with my clients. And like, basically, I'm always challenging everybody to celebrate themselves daily, celebrate the new things that they're doing, the things that, they're trying to shift a little bit. Like it's constantly just reminding yourself of the wins, and celebrating yourself. So, yeah, it's a
Yeah.
huge
You shared, I
game
think it
changer
was you that
for
shared a
sure.
quote on Instagram the other day. Um, it said, remind me if this is you. Part of your purpose is enjoying the now, realizing just how blessed you are, soaking in all the beauty surrounding you. At one time, your now was the future you always dreamed of having. Be grateful. Gratitude attracts even more beauty. So, yeah, I
Yes,
loved
isn't
that
that
one,
so
and
good? Uh,
I found myself getting caught up in like, I'm very much thinking of the future all the time, and then I'm like, sometimes I get overwhelmed, or sometimes I get like sad that I'm not already
yeah.
there, or like, whatever. And and so I really like that quote. I put it in my planner actually, to remember to just like celebrate the
Oh,
here
I love
now
that.
and where you're at and things like that. And it also just kind of changes,
Yeah.
kind of to Whitney's celebrity thing. It kind of changes your like outward countenance too. A person who's grateful and
Mm-hmm.
is celebrating all those little wins, or noticing all those positive little things,
Mm-hmm.
or tender mercies, or whatever, right, you want to call them. Like they are
Yeah.
naturally more, like, you're naturally gravitated, no, you naturally gravitate towards those people, you know.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And that's where mindset is so powerful, because it's also like, it's funny because I do call myself a mindset coach, but it is just as much like about the feelings, and it's about like it's like how you feel. It's just as much as your feelings as your thoughts. It really is all connected. And, if we go back to the model, if that thought makes you feel a certain way, so you're thinking a thought that's, I'm grateful for blank, and it makes you feel gratitude, joy, you know, lucky, I don't know, whatever, these feelings of goodness, it's going to help move you into action, um, from
Mm-hmm.
such a healthy place. You're, and this is something we haven't really touched on, but it's like you can take any action with like an unhealthy mindset, and like that's like probably what you're learning in her program about like the difference between doing something, but doing it with like a healthy, beautiful, like loving, abundant mindset to where it's like radiating through, right? Like people will feel that difference, and it makes all the difference like in the actual result. If that makes
No,
that
no,
might be
no.
too
I
deep for
totally
some,
got it. Yeah, yeah.
let and actually I got this one from Whitney too. Like it's like the tree, like you can still have a tree, but with if the roots are rotten, it's not going to last long, right? Like it's not going to have,
Yeah.
it'll eventually wither, like, so it's like we just want to make sure like we're feeding the roots, aka our mindset, with like positive, loving, gratitude filled thoughts that like it truly like
Yeah.
radiates out of you. And you can do, then you'll move into action in such a happier way. So it's like you can do the same thing, but you can do it unhappy. Like this is a really basic way of putting it, but you could do it
Yeah.
unhappy or you could do it happy, like that's way too basic
But yeah,
sounding.
no, the
But you
principles,
get what I'm
yeah, the principle's
getting
still
at
there.
there.
And I think also having that kind of like looking at maybe your failures and stuff in that way too. Cause like, I've always said, like
Mm-hmm.
I would argue that you learn more from your failures than your success, and so having that kind of mindset shift of like,
Oh yeah.
oh, this sucks, and being allowed to feel that this sucks, right? Because this isn't like mindset
Mm-hmm.
work is not like pushing emotions away and like covering it. Conceal, don't feel is not what it
Mm-hmm.
is, right?
Totally.
and so and
Right.
so yeah, and
Yes.
so being able to
So
take those
so true.
losses as well as the wins and like almost celebrate it as like a teaching moment or a
Mm.
learning moment, allowing yourself to feel
Oh my
like,
gosh,
dang, this
yes.
sucks, or like, wow, this is rough, or like, oh, I'm like, feel the things,
Yes.
but then also like, this is a learning moment, and it's like, this too shall pass. So I think that's really important too, and I think that has been really helpful for me personally too, because it's hard. I'm a ruminator, so it's hard not to
Mm-hmm.
ruminate in the losses and the overthinking and
Right.
stuff.
Yeah, totally. And hang on, I just gotta say, you just filled my little mindset coach heart. So I was so proud. You went into like mindset 201 there. Like, but yeah, about how it's like allowing, so there's like, yeah, being aware of your thoughts that are coming up, aware of those feelings, and then not just like wanting to change them right away, but like allow yourself to feel them and process through. Which is what you just shared. And I was
Yeah.
like, yes, that's my
It's a
girl.
work in progress.
Yeah, no, it's
Yeah.
definitely working. So, um, I love that, the conceal. I always use it I think about the let it go part, but I never use the
Yeah, I
conceal don't
hate that
feel. That's
whole
so good. I'm
term.
gonna
I'm
remember
like,
that
oh my
one.
gosh, that's horrible parenting. I hate Frozen. I
I
know.
know, it's
I
so
know. I hate
unhealthy.
Frozen.
It's so
Anyone who's
unhealthy.
listened knows this. It barely made it in the Disney rankings.
I know, we I know we had an argument on
I
via
know.
DM
I
because
know.
I
That's fine.
still love
I
Frozen.
actually want to
Don't
see
hate
it
me.
on stage. I feel like I like to believe that the stage version fixes some things, because
Yeah.
there's some serious plot holes that I just can't ignore.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, thank you so much.
True.
How would someone get started if they're feeling stuck or whatever, and they feel like they maybe want to try out mindset coaching, either with you or in general? Where would someone go to kind of get started? Like, would you recommend any specific kind of book? Would you recommend a coach, or maybe some combination of the
Mm.
two?
Yeah. Um, well, with me, you can just find my website, or on Instagram is the easiest way. I just like keep
Can
in touch
you
with
share
everyone
your
on Instagram.
Instagram handle for
And we
us?
would set up like a consult. Yes, it is cherie.kaufman.coaching. Now, nobody knows how to spell that. So if you're listening here, I'm going to spell it Cherie.Kaufman. Kaufman.coaching. It's like I had the first and last name that nobody knows how to spell. But And also my website's just cherie.kaufman.coaching .com. And then, yeah, we would just set up a quick call and just chat about your things and where you want to be. And I also love that you've used the word stuck like 3 or 4 times so far. And it's like, that's the best way to describe it. It's like, I try to get fancy with marketing or like try to speak to people, but it's like, that's really what it is. It's like when people like have tried the things and they feel stuck, it's just like, what next? You know, like you said, it's the definition of insanity to just keep doing the same thing over and over without addressing like what might actually be like the root issue, right? Or
Yeah,
you got to
totally.
water those roots. And then as far as other ways to just like start educating yourself on the mindset world, I love the Life Coach School podcast. I could just like listen to her, Brooke Castillo. If anybody has enjoyed kind of like the topics and like the brain training type world and the mindset, she's similar to me in how she kind of likes a little bit of all of it. Like she's not too far on the woo woo, she's not too far on just the logical side, but Brooke Castillo is amazing. And then, I mean, Whitney, obviously we should give a shout out to Whitney. What is her new podcast like popped up like top of the line when I put in mindset today, how to be famous. But she's very niche down to people looking for like, you know, to be seen and have their like platform, which is really cool. But I'd say basic life coaching stuff, I love the
You
Life
can
Coach
start
School
with this podcast episode
it's so,
and then go
so
to
good.
that one.
Oh yeah, well obviously this one. Duh. And a book, I don't know, I'm just such a podcast person, so I always try to, I have like 5 million books on my shelf right here and I haven't finished one of them, let's be real, unless it was on Audible or something.
It's hard to find time.
But yeah, listen to this and then send me a DM.
Yeah, Cherie's super great about like responding quickly, and she's so passionate about it that she'll answer all of your stuff, all your questions. I know a book I really like. It's not technically like a mindset book, but it kind of is. I'm gonna swear, so don't come for me. But it's do you know which one I'm gonna say? It's You Are a Badass.
I think so.
Is the one? Yeah, it's super fun, and it's a really easy read. And like that's a good place to start as well if you're a book person. It's really fun because like some of this stuff is like some of them I've read like Anatomy of Peace, and I've read like some of those other ones, and it's like they're great and stuff, but like it's like intense, you know, and it's like I kind of feel myself being like exhausted after those. Whereas this one, she's like no, she's like just so fun, and it's like so just like it's just like really accessible read to anyone, you know, so that one's a good one.
Now I'm looking at my shelf seeing what else there, because that's I say that's wait, they're up there. No, I don't know, that's a great first starting point. That's like that was huge when I was in New York. So also, I mean, okay, I haven't well, I'm just gonna say it because it's right here. Once again, I haven't read it, but it's called the Proven Power of Being Kind to Yourself and Self-Compassion. I'm not really sure. I think it's the full name by Kristen Neff. This one is like kind of a staple in the life coach world. I know Whitney also talked about this one a lot. I have, especially if there's like a lot of like self-worth or self-love, you know, struggles, I think this is a really good one, just about learning to like truly have self-compassion and be mindful of what you want and like choosing you. So that's a big one. I have a lot of clients who are kind of working on the self-love and stuff, so
that's awesome. Well, thank you so much. Go follow Cherie. She's great and she's super fun. I personally find it very inspiring. Go listen to the episode. And sorry if it's a little like blurry or it sounds weird or whatever. We're working through it. But and by we I mean me. Because I'm you know, my audio engineering does not extend to this stuff. So I'm learning just like anyone else. But yeah, thank you so much. Is there any last words of wisdom that you'd like to share with the people at all?
I'm just sorry if I rambled too much in the beginning, but this was really fun.
No.
And and also this is your first time doing a podcast like long distance, so this is so cool. So anyway,
Yeah. Yeah. So
love
hopefully
that.
I can like get my Wi-Fi or whatever's happening to play nice. But you'll still get a lot
But
of
I
wisdom
can hear
from
everything.
Cherie. Good, good. And like we
Yeah.
can hear you and stuff. It's just sometimes it's the picture's fuzzy and sometimes it's not. But
Yeah.
I'm
That's
mostly here
okay.
for the audio. So yeah, thank you so
But
much.
wait, my
Cherie.
last thing.
Oh, yes.
My
go.
last thing. Sorry.
Yes.
Is
No,
just to
please.
celebrate daily. That's my last word of wisdom. Okay, that's it.
Preach, preach, sister. Yeah,
Woo!
celebrate the wins and the losses, right? Because both can
Yeah.
bring joy regardly. Yeah.
Absolutely. I love it. And keep
love
listening
it.
to Tiffany because she's basically
Please.
a mindset master.
We're working on it.
I mean, honestly. All right. Well, thank you so much. This was so fun.
Good. I'm so glad. Thank you so much, Cherie. Per usual, everybody, remember to leave a rating and review if you're watching this on YouTube. Please like and subscribe. And feel free if you have any questions for Cherie to put it in the comments as well. Thank you so much. And I will see you guys next Wednesday. Bye.
Bye.
Remember to tune in every Wednesday for Well-Rounded Wednesday, and please leave a rating and a review.